Good evening, everyone. This is Erica Jones-Haskins, and I am super excited to be here with everyone tonight so that I can make sure that everyone can hear. If I could get folks to give me a thumbs up if the audio is working out for you, for people who are on camera. Thank you. I see thumbs up. Great. This is our second coordinated council meeting, and I am really grateful to have such a great turnout tonight for folks who are interested in learning more about transitions in employment. So we are getting settled in, and we're going to go ahead and get ourselves started with the presentation so that we can kind of keep on track tonight. Our agenda, obviously we're going to do a welcome. Tonight's topic is really important. It's something that people have really try to make sure that they can kind of figure out what's the next step in terms of finding employment, and we're glad to be able to feature it. These ideas come directly from our state and regional council, so if you're wondering how we get ideas for these meetings, that's where they come from. We're going to do a welcome and some ground rules. We'll do a quick commercial for what is IFSP in case you don't know what you're here for and what this is about. And then we've got a couple speakers who are going to share some information about a program called I'm Determined and a little bit of information about employment data, and then we're going to get into the main presentation by Martin Kurylowski, and we'll have our regional breakout. So we hope you enjoy this session. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat to let us know, and we are captioning for tonight, and we will be recording this session in case anyone would like to go back and see it, or if you know of people who should have been here and didn't get a chance to be here tonight, they will have a chance to be able to see that at a later date. All right, so just a few ground rules. Tonight's session, as I mentioned, is being recorded. We ask that you please use the chat. You can use the chat to respond, or you can use the chat to ask questions. We do have someone from our staff who is monitoring it, and we will get back to you. And also remember, tonight's session is a public meeting, so you may want to refrain from sharing personal information or details that you don't want out in the general public. If you have a technical support issue, please send us an email at ifspcommunity@dbhds.virginia.gov. Again, that is IFSP Community, COMMUNITY, @dbhds.virginia.gov. We have people who are going to be looking at that for tech support, but if you have general questions, again, the chat's a great place to do that. All right, so just in case you're saying, what is this IFSP? I'm here for this meeting, but I thought I was coming about transitions, but I hear about this IFSP thing. The Individual and Family Program and Individual and Family Support Program consists of 4 components. We have our little graph here, our graphic here, and if you want to watch a quick video, we always have a YouTube video that we have available that does an overview of this as well, and if you need to hear it, if it makes a little bit more sense that way, or if it's just better to hear rather than be able to see this. But really quickly, we have a funding program, which folks know a lot about probably most frequently, but we also have 3 other programs that are really important. We have our partnership with VCU for the Center of Family Involvement for the Family to Family program, and that is a family peer support network. So if you know someone who wants to meet with another family and wants to know what that journey is like to troubleshoot specific issues or just want that support, that program is supported through IFSP, and that's a program that is available to people in the public. There's also a peer-to-peer program that the ARC is the organization that provides that, and we support the ARC. And I think we actually have a couple people from the ARC here tonight who might be able to put some things in the chat if they want to speak and say hello. And then also we have Senior Navigator, which is our My Life, My Community website. And I always tell people, if you don't know where to start or where to find anything, that is a great location to start, because we put all of our information there. That website has been curated for families and really is designed to give people the information they need in a way that we think is probably the most useful way to kind of get that information. And last but not least, we have our community coordination program. There's the You Are Here in this virtual environment. This is what tonight is. We work with 5 regional councils across the state. We also have a state council, which serves as serves as our official state advisory group. And they work together to figure out what are topics that families and individuals care about and how can we get programming to support that. So tonight is a direct outgrowth of that work. So we're glad you're here, and that's just like the little commercial about IFSP. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Carly Blake and let her take it away. And thank you. Thanks, Carly.
Thanks. Yes, I'm Carly Blake. I'm the community coordinator and I work with the regional councils. Tonight, to start us off, we have a youth leader from I'm Determined, Maddie Sumner, here to talk to us with Kendall, one of our council members. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Great, thanks, Carly. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kendall Swartzentruber. I am the co-state coordinator for the I'm Determined project. And so tonight, just based on the nature of the conversation, we thought that I'm Determined might have a little bit of spark to add to the conversation. And so I naturally was inclined to invite a youth to kind of talk with us a little bit about their experience with the I'm Determined project. For those of you who are not familiar, the I'm Determined project is a state-funded project funded through the Virginia Department of Education, and it focuses on providing direct instruction models and opportunities to practice skills associated with self-determined behavior. So this project facilitates youth, especially those with disabilities, to undertake a measure of control in their lives and helping to set and steer the course rather than remaining the silent passenger. That is my formal spiel. But if there's anything I've learned, it's that all the things that we do are much better when we have youth perspective. So I brought along Maddie tonight because she is one of my favorite people, and she just has a wonderful, great perspective on life. So Maddie, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, my name is Maddie Sumner. I'm from Virginia. I graduated from high school in 2020. I work at my dad's golf course. This is my third year being a youth leader. I can't remember exactly how many years altogether I've been in a part of the program, because I've been going to it for a pretty long time. So it's kind of hard to remember how many years I've been in.
Yeah, I think
I'm 19 years old.
I think it's been at least 7, because I have been with I'm Determined for 8 years, and I remember meeting you the first year. And I remember you would barely talk. So
yeah,
the fact
I was really
that you're
shy.
in front of all these people talking, it's fantastic. So the way that we thought we'd do this tonight is just, I have 3 quick questions that I want to ask Maddie about I'm Determined, and just get her perspective on things, so that those of you on the call can kind of get a sense of what the I'm Determined project is, and how youth kind of see it from their point of view. So Maddie, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because I told her if she said no there, then we're just done. So I'm so glad that you said yes. All right, first question. Tell me what the I'm Determined project is and why it's important to you.
The I'm Determined project is important to me because you get together with other people with disabilities and learn about each other.
Awesome. And what sort of activities do you get to do, like at like the summit or other I'm Determined projects events?
You get to go to like the dances that they have there, and sometimes they'll have like a movie thing if you wanted to like watch a movie. And also they have like these like cool games that you play. They're like computer games, pool, stuff like that.
And do you do a lot of those things like by yourself, or like your parents just like right beside you the whole time?
I do them by myself because I have other friends that want to play with me.
Nice, nice, awesome. So tell me, what have you learned by being a part or by being a youth leader in the Undetermined Project?
I learned how to work on advocating to each other and be more independent.
Nice. Yeah. So like the first time we met, I remember this, you were by your mom's side. Is your
Yeah, I
mom
didn't want
even,
to leave her.
yeah. Is your mom even home tonight? She's in
Yeah,
like,
she actually is
oh,
home.
she is home. But you've really
She
like
actually worked from home today.
Oh, nice. But you're doing all this on your own and you have confidence. And so this whole idea of being independent is a huge part of what it means to be undetermined youth and an undetermined youth leader.
Yeah, I'm
That's
trying not to be a mama's girl, but it's hard to.
Especially when you have such a caring mom like your mom, right?
Yeah.
That's so true. All right, last question. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What have you learned by being a part of the Undetermined Project?
I learned how to talk to others about our disabilities and what we need to be successful. I determine is important to me because I am learning to ask for what I need and what I need extra help.
Awesome. Yeah. So obviously, Maddie, like this whole time that you've been part of this project, it's just been this like one big growth experience for you. And it's really great. We always love to like give youth these opportunities to kind of step into these roles and lead. And just this is the work. So that is just our little brief on I'm Determined. I will put, I'll be sure to put our website in the chat box so that you guys can access that. And if you want any more information, you can always get a hold of me or Maddie for that matter, because she can probably tell you more about it than I can. And Maddie is going to stick around because she said she is super intrigued with what IFSP is all about. So we are done. Nice job, Maddie.
Thank you all so much. That was really great. And thank you, Maddie, for joining us. We're happy to have you in our meeting. Great, we're gonna move on to the next part. We're going to have a presentation from Seb Prohn, who is from the VCU Partnership for People with Disabilities. He's going to talk to us about the National Court Indicator Employment Data. Seb is the Senior Research and Evaluation Specialist at VCU's Partnership for People with Disabilities. His work addresses improved quality of life, health, and community participation across the lifespan. He is the lead analyst of Virginia's National Court Indicators in-person survey, an instrument used to monitor the impact of HCBS waiver supports on personal outcomes and opportunities for people with IDD. Today, he'll use NCI data to share some information about employment in Virginia. Turning it over to you, Seb.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I'm a little bit starstruck coming after Maddie. She did such a great job, and the I'm Determined project, which I love. And I see a lot of people I respect a whole lot on this call. So thank you a lot for having me. Thank you, Erica and Carly, for having me back. Like it was said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the National Core Indicators in-person survey, which is used as a way to monitor and understand employment, among other things, but tonight I'll use it for employment, but it's used for a variety of personal outcomes to see if the service system is helping people achieve those certain outcomes. And what we do is we take a random sample of people who have waiver services, HCBS waiver services, and we will get a sample of about 800 people each year to help the DD agencies track performance over time and then benchmark some of those outcomes against national data. the idea is that the results will be used to continually improve service quality. And so, like I said, tonight I'll talk a little bit about the employment-based results from Virginia's NCI data, as well as some results from some research that we've done that's rooted within National Core Indicators data. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So employment data allows for us to monitor in any given sample those who are participating in paid community-based employment. We can also monitor those using day services, facility-based employment, or paid employment in community businesses that primarily hire people with disabilities. And tonight, and just right here, which is these are data from an infographic that we release each year. You can find it through the Partnership for People with Disabilities. We release one every year. And tonight I'm just going to focus on that paid community employment. And first, I just wanted to say that when you're looking at these data, to be clear, in 2019, the sample size was a little bit over 800, but because of the pandemic, the 2019-2020 data dropped down to about 500 people because when COVID came along, the data collection, which is an in-person survey, ceased just for the protection of everyone involved. As you can see, paid community employment ranges from about 10 to 12% annually. We hover around that in Virginia. And as you can see with the national benchmark, that this number falls about 20% short of that number. I will state again that this is a specific subsect of people who are using waivers, who have IDD, and so it's not necessarily representative of everyone. But I would say that the people in paid community employment do have approximately the same income and work hours as the national average, as you can see through this chart, and 8 out of 10 of them were making over minimum wage. And so, but I do want to call to your attention that these data are from a 2-week period. Okay, so meaning that people are working about 13 hours a week, even though double that is shown for a 2-week period, and they're making around $400 a month. So that would come out to about an approximate annual income of about $5,000 a year. Okay, so I'll just leave that statement at that. Can we go to the next slide, please? A little over 50% of those who are not working in the survey and pretty much any given year do want to work. And so we say, okay, well, if you do want to work, let's see what sorts of things you have that may be predictors of employment. And as you can see, about 35% of these groups in any given year had a goal for integrated community employment in their plan. And this is an important statistic that I want you to kind of hold on to, because I'm going to talk more about it in the next slide. The NCI data and career development literature shows that employment training opportunities and structured community volunteerism can be predictive of paid employment. But less than 20% of the people in this group who wanted to participate in employment were involved in employment preparation opportunities. But about half, and I'd say that's consistent with most years, around 50% of people were volunteering in their community as a form of job preparation, but also civic engagement. Next slide, please. There you go. I'm highlighting that one because will be a good transition to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, and you can go ahead and click again, and I think it will have some other stuff come up. So often as researchers, we use previous studies and theories to build these neat predictive models for outcomes for things like paid community employment. But we did a study recently that is coming out in the American Journal for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. And we used machine learning, which is a form of artificial intelligence that builds algorithms to explore all possible predictors of any given outcome. And when we created this machine learning model to understand what predicts paid community employment for HCBS waiver users, we found that the best predictor by far was having community employment as a goal in service plans. And I think that this is a finding which really emphasizes, employment first initiatives and people and their families really making decisions around employment. I know that Lisa Holland and others who are on here right now are really working with families from a younger age with just the Discovering Me project and other really neat initiatives to start talking about those employment decisions from a very young age. And I know that it's going on and I'm determined as well. That's very important. And I think that these findings, they align with those as well. What I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to drop a link to this article because that is a very brief overview. For any of those of you who may want to continue digging a little bit deeper, sorry, let me just drop this in here. All right. So next slide, please. Yeah, we'll click through these. That's just more information.
Sorry.
That's all right. I shouldn't have put those in there. Why don't we go ahead and click it again and one more time. There we go. We'll just have those up to start with. So community employment can be such an important outcome because there have been established links to things between employment and wellness, quality of life, mental health, social inclusion, and a lot of really other great outcomes. And in our work, we found that when we use community employment as a predictor, it can lead to some other interesting things. So even when we hold characteristics constant, characteristics such as support needs using the CIS, age, residence type, sex, race, all of those things, that employment is still a significant predictor of privacy rights, how frequently people participate in their communities, and everyday choices, which includes things like having control over one's daily schedule and how people spend their own money. Those important things, those important everyday choices. So these are all just based in national core indicator data. We can go ahead and go to the last slide, which does just include my email. This is important because we're using national core indicator data to try to help our agencies, help our system to answer some questions, but really we want to make sure we're answering community questions as well. And I'd like for you to consider emailing me any topics of interest or any questions you have that we might be able to use the National Core Indicators data to explore. At least what I can do is I can pitch your ideas to our research team, and we can make sure that we can produce some content, maybe one-pagers or infographics that can help answer the types of things and outcomes you might be most interested in. So please feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Seb. Before we move on, I did see Charlotte, you had your hand up.
I wanted to ask a question to Mr. Prohn. I work at the National Down Syndrome Society, and something that has, and one of the things that we are advocating for is a bill called the Transformation into Competitive Employment, and one of the barriers to that is people with disabilities being paid sub-minimum wage and social workshops. And I am wondering, how are you, through the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitation Services, at combating this?
Well, I've had the great honor to work with DARS in the past, but I don't represent them and can't speak for them. But I do know that we're going to have some great presenters coming up next who do represent DARS and may be able to speak better to that. But thank you for your question.
Yes, and on that, I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight, Martin Kurylowski. who is the Transition and Education Services Coordinator for the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. Martin is a certified rehabilitation counselor with a Master's of Arts degree in psychology from Central Connecticut State University. He's worked for 10 combined years in both special education and the state vocational rehabilitation system to support students with disabilities in their vocational development and post-school transition. In his current role, he has the pleasure of supporting transition staff and programs serving students across the Commonwealth of Virginia, as well as partnering with various stakeholders who carry a similar mission of helping all students with disabilities to achieve greater opportunity through employment. And so with that, I will turn it over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much. That was a pleasant introduction. Let me just share my screen real quick. Oh, sorry, I forgot to click the, okay, share sound. All right, there we go. Is everybody seeing my screen? If you are on camera, if you thumbs up, okay. Yes. Thank you so much. So, well, good evening, everybody. I was just saying earlier, I don't get to say good evening too often in my job, so I'm really enjoying that. Usually it's good morning or good afternoon. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and I love joining in on stuff like this and hearing about I'm Determined, and also hearing about the young lady earlier who got into Project Search. That sort of stuff is really awesome to hear about, and to see the kind of things that are happening out there that's really having a great impact on our young people's lives. So basically, I'm here from Virginia DARS, and I think Charlotte's question was a good lead into this presentation. I'm the Transition and Education Services Coordinator for DARS, and when we talk about transition at DARS, we're talking about students and youth who are between the ages of 14 to 24 years old. And so we kind of treat that age range a little differently, and then especially because those years are so important, from 14 to 24, because it really is setting a path for your entire future. Probably not many people know that we start working with folks as early as 14 years old, because historically we've been seen as kind of like an agency that people, education just kind of hands them off to DARS at the end of high school, and we take it from there. But since 2014, with WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, it was basically a law that really changed things in a big way. So I hope that today that you'll get a better understanding of kind of the services that we have to offer to folks. And I understand that a lot of folks on this presentation might be maybe waiting for a waiver, and you don't just have to wait. There's a lot of things that you can do in the meantime. And so hopefully you get a better idea of that stuff. But before we start, I do just want to make sure that you know that we do have a couple of web links on this presentation, which hopefully we'll share out at some point. But one of those is how VR works. And this is a wonderful little page on our website where you can learn a lot about how our agency works, and your role in things, and also your vocational rehabilitation counselor's role. Just a lot of really good information here. So I would encourage you in your spare time for fun as it is, to go and check that out. So that's my spiel. And so DARS is an agency that has, I think, over 30 offices around the state. You'll see there the little red dots. And in each office, we're serving the surrounding counties and some of the municipalities there. And we work with the schools, we work with all the different agencies that are involved in employment and supporting individuals with disabilities. So we have a lot of partnerships in all of these areas. And each office has a team of vocational rehabilitation counselors who are kind of the people that work directly with students and young people and make sure that they're getting the services that they need. But we also have business and job placement staff who work directly with businesses and try to create opportunities for folks that we work with so that they can get out and explore the world of work, but also to ultimately obtain a job and keep a job in the community that is competitive and integrated employment. So that's a little bit about our agency and where we are there. And you can see in the middle is our central office where I work out of. So that little triangle is, you can think of that as Martin. So people might not know this, but the majority of people that we work with now are in that transition age range of 14 to 24. So this is in large part because of the legislation in 2014 that really focused us on serving transition age students and youth. And when I say students and youth, you might be wondering, what's the difference? Well, a student is 14 to 22 years old and has to be someone with a disability that's enrolled in an approved education program. So most students, if they have a disability and are in high school, and even if they're in college, can be considered a student with a disability if they're 14 to 22. But if they're not in school and they're 14 to 24, then they're considered a youth. And the reason why that's important is because there's a special set of services that I'll talk about today that are only available for students with disabilities. So our mission at DARS is employment, and not just any kind of employment. I think earlier it was mentioned, Charlotte asked the question about that sub-minimum wage employment, which a lot of times is happening in a sheltered environment that is not integrated. That is not the kind of employment that we pursue and support in our agency. Instead, we want to make sure that our folks that we work with are pursuing competitive employment that is paid at least minimum wage, but really we want them paid what anybody else would be paid for that position. So if someone were becoming a doctor and getting paid minimum wage, that would not be a competitive rate of reimbursement for that type of work. So, and then integrated just means that they're performing a job that's not in any kind of a secluded environment, but is working with people who have or don't have disabilities. And it's not really a job that's separating individuals with disabilities from anybody else. So we believe that pursuing employment is going to also help you pursue your independence and a higher quality of life. So in our agency and in our services, there's kind of a continuum of services for students and youth who are in transition. The earliest services, which we'll probably spend the most time talking about today, are called pre-employment transition services. And we say pre-ETS as a short way to say all that. So I know nobody likes acronyms, but we have to use them to save 5 milliseconds. So it really helps us out a lot. That's a joke. And so pre-ETS are really the earliest set of services that are only available to students. And that legislation in 2014 created a new category of folks that we can serve called potentially eligible students. So only students can be potentially eligible and receive pre-ETS through our VR program at DARS. So potentially eligible means that you don't even have to apply and go through an eligibility determination. Really, as long as you're just a student in Virginia who has a disability and wants to receive pre-ETS, you can receive those. It's very quick and easy to get started. All it takes is a simple application form that anybody at your school or your DARS office can help you with completing and getting started as early as 14 years old. So after pre-ETS, we have transition services, which is really when a student is about to leave school and is going to be transitioning out of school. And these services are things like post-secondary education and training, or employment in some kind of a job that can help someone get along a particular career path and get started with that, or some kind of vocational training. So the goal of our transition services is really to provide somebody leaving school with that next step that's going to help keep them moving towards an employment outcome. And then our final services are employment services. And these are things like supported employment, customized employment, our job placement services, which we can provide in-house and don't need to use a job coach from another vendor. So these are services that are designed to help someone get that job of interest for them that's in their local community, wherever they want to work. So I'm going to show a video about pre-ETS before we dive into that. So hopefully you'll be able to hear and see it. Just let me know if you can't.
This unforgettable vacation memory, it didn't actually begin here. This memory began
What are pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS? Pre-ETS are the first step in a continuum of services provided by DARS for students with disabilities. It gives students an early start at exploring career interests, preparing for employment and adult life. How does pre-ETS work? DARS collaborates with schools and other community partners to enhance existing transition services. Pre-ETS are provided to students based on their needs. You do not have to be a DARS vocational rehabilitation client to receive pre-ETS. However, you can apply for services at any time. Who can receive pre-ETS? Students with documented disabilities can start receiving pre-ETS at age 14. Pre-ETS can be requested by the student, school, parent or guardian, or other service providers. And disability is verified through an IEP, a 504 plan, or medical provider. What are pre-ETS activities? They allow students to explore career interests and foster motivation, use the workplace to gain knowledge and skills, learn about education and training opportunities for after high school, develop social and independent living skills, and learn how to effectively communicate their needs and direct their life. For many students, pre-ETS, along with the school's transition services, will be enough to successfully prepare them for life after high school. Students who need additional, more individualized services and supports may apply to DARS VR program at any time. To find out more about pre-ETS, visit www.vadars.org and call the DARS office near you.
Okay. So again, I'm going to kind of move quickly through this, but because I'm just repeating what I said before. But to receive pre-ETS, again, individual has to be a student with a disability, so 14 to 22, and enrolled in an education program, and they don't have to apply and become eligible. They just need to complete this simple pre-ETS, we call it our pre-ETS release and consent form. And it's really easy. It's 2 pages. It really just requires your signature, or if you're, you have a guardian or parent who needs to sign them, they need to sign it, and just get that to a DARS counselor who works with that school, and they'll get started working with that student to provide pre-ETS. But also, if you do decide to apply for the VR program, and become eligible for the VR services, then you can receive pre-ETs as well as other VR services that you might not be able to get if you're just potentially eligible. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, because there are a lot of other services that can be beneficial for a young student who's in transition, but especially as someone gets closer to transitioning out of school. So it's worth considering whether you want to apply for the VR program and try to become eligible, or if you just want to try pre-ETs through the potentially eligible route of services. So pre-ETs is really these 5 different, we call them the 5 required pre-ETs categories. And these are services that are provided kind of on a one-to-one basis with students. They might be provided in groups. They're often provided in groups of students. And there are also services that since the pandemic began that we've been providing virtually or remotely to folks. So since March 2020, we've really been trying to figure out as an agency, how can we adapt our service delivery to be virtual, just like everybody else has. And just as we think we're getting good at it, things are starting to go back in person, but we do think that we'll continue doing some virtual services in the future. And one thing that we've really tried to get better at is engaging our students who, of all different ability levels. It's important to make sure that you're engaging people on a virtual platform, because it's so easy to get distracted and have a hard time following along when somebody's doing a virtual lesson or something over the computer. So, our staff have participated in trainings to learn some different techniques and strategies for engaging folks virtually. So these, so when we're talking about pre-ETs, we're really talking about these 5 categories, and I will talk a little bit more about each one of these and a little bit more with some examples. So there's job exploration counseling, which is a really important one. It's exploring different careers and looking at the individual student's interests and how they line up with different careers. There's work-based learning, which is actually going out and going to businesses and interacting with employers to learn about careers and job opportunities that way. So work-based learning is where we're actually involving employers in the process of transition. Counseling on post-secondary education and training options is where we're exploring different types of educational or vocational training options that students have in their area. And one of these options is our Wilson Workforce and Rehabilitation Center, which, obviously for high school students, they have a program called PERT, which is a great program for helping students to explore different careers. And it happens either in the community remotely, or it happens at their center, which is in Fishersville, Virginia. And so they have a variety of training programs there. And when a lot of our students graduate, they want to go there to learn how to do manufacturing or get a certification in certain other programs that they might have there. So that's another category there. And then work readiness training is all those skills like independent living skills and what we call soft skills that students really need to work on and practice to be ready for employment when they exit out of school. So we start working on that really early. And then self-advocacy, like Kendall and that they were talking about earlier, these are skills that really, self-advocacy is in everything that we do with the folks that we work with. They really need to be able to talk about their needs and their interests and their preferences as they relate to work, as they relate to school and training and independent living. And we want services to be directed and focused around what the student or the individual we're working with wants and needs. So, so there's self-advocacy is a really important category in pre-ETs. and we start working with folks as early as 14. So some examples of these different categories and activities. So job exploration counseling, we do like interest inventories and maybe invite career speakers to explore different careers. Work-based learning, we might do like informational interviews with businesses. We might do a workplace tour, job shadowing, volunteering. This summer we're trying to do a lot of paid or unpaid work experiences at businesses in the community that are anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks long. So that's a really important part of transition, is for students to actually experience work in an authentic environment, not just simulated or kind of the school's clothing store that they have, like in an actual work environment with real employees and employers. So that's really important for someone's growth and development when they're in high school. And then for this category of counseling on post-secondary, we talk a lot about how to request accommodations at the post-secondary level. How do you complete financial aid for going to an education or training program, understanding academic accommodations and services. So this is really a lot of education, but we might do like college tours or visits as part of this. And then work readiness training. This is a lot of just working on soft skills and job seeking skills, and maybe money management is a big one for young people. So knowing that you probably shouldn't spend your entire paycheck on video games. And then self-advocacy, you'll see we use a lot of the I'm Determined resources and materials in the work that we do with young folks. We love the I'm Determined project. And so, one of the ways that we try to align and partner with schools is, really looking at what students are doing in school and trying to align what we're doing with that, so that we're complementing and supplementing what's happening with a student when they're in school, and that we're not duplicating what's happening in school. So some services, this is just an example of some different services that if you're potentially eligible, you can receive. If you're a student, or if you're eligible for services, you can receive. So on the left side, you'll see a lot of just the things that we just went over that are pre-ETS category kind of topics. Things like the job shadowing and looking at interest inventories. And on the right side, you'll see that you can receive pre-ETS if you're eligible for VR, but you can also receive all these other services, which we consider vocational rehabilitation services. Things like supported employment or post-secondary education and training. These are things that don't fit within the scope of pre-ETS, but are services we can offer to eligible individuals and are really helpful. So when someone applies for the vocational rehabilitation program, everything is individualized for that person, but we do follow a general process. And so someone gets referred, they complete an application, and they're scheduled for an intake with a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And that counselor's goal then is to determine if they're eligible for the program. And you can learn more about all those things. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but if you go to one of those websites on the first screen of this presentation, you can read more about that. And once someone is eligible, we make what's called an individualized plan for employment. And that's really what has all the services and the employment goal that someone might, the employment that somebody wants to pursue. So that's really, it's kind of like the IEP for school. We have the IPE, not to confuse you or anything, but that's just how it happened. And then, so we provide those services on the plan, and ultimately we want to get someone employed in competitive integrated employment. And once they're happy and employed and successful on the job, then we close the VR case and we consider it a job well done. And if somebody wants to reapply for services again in the future, if they're maybe looking to advance in employment or pursue a different type of employment and need support, then they're perfectly welcome to apply again. There's no limits there. And someone can apply for the VR program as early as 14 to become eligible, or if you're a student, you can receive services as potentially eligible. So apart from pre-ETS, we do have the transition services again. I'm not going to go over this again, but we are going to share this presentation out so you can review it there or just read up on our website or contact me if you have questions about any of that. I know that probably not everybody here is a student or their loved one or someone you're working with might not be a student, they might be an adult. So you might have more interest in some of these services than the pre-ETS that I'm describing. So if that's the case, I'd be happy to help you out, or you can check out our website or contact your nearest DARS office and try to get started receiving some services and supports that way. Again, we have employment services like supported employment and customized employment for eligible students, youth, or adults. And so these are services that are going to help you get that actual employment outcome. So we partner with a lot of different agencies who help us with providing services. And I know we have a few representatives from our providers here on the call today. So we have employment service organizations that we work with who provide various services, including pre-ETS. So we do a lot of things in-house with our staff, but we also work a lot with providers that help us. In total, we end up getting the job done together. And so again, if you're interested in services or know somebody that might be, then you can go to our website, find your local DARS office, or we do have this toll-free line here that you can call and somebody will help you get pointed in the right direction. And once you're connected, hopefully you'll get a DARS counselor assigned to you who will schedule you for that first meeting if it's pre-ETS, or an intake appointment if it's a VR case. So I hope I didn't go over on time, but I want to thank you all for having me. And again, my contact information is here if I can assist in any way after today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. There have been a lot of questions in the chat, and Tyler, who I believe is one of our regional experts, actually has answered some of them. We will come back and answer additional questions after the breakouts, and questions can also be addressed with your regional experts in your breakouts. So give me just one moment. I'm going to share my screen.
Great. Well, everybody's getting back in. This is Erica again. I'm so glad that you all could come back and join us. We did get a few questions, so we're going to give everybody a couple more seconds to get back in the room, and we will start with them. Martin is still here, but we've tried to answer these questions during the breakout so that we can give you guys a little bit of time to read them. Always remember that we will be posting the follow-up material to the session. We'll be sending it out. We'll also be posting it in our digest. We'll publish it to the My Life, My Community website. So we will have lots of different ways to get this information to you. So please look for it if you are interested. In seeing that information. So you'll see here on the screen the questions that we got in the chat. The first question that we have is, let's see, where exactly do I go to apply for pre-ETS? Do I work with my school if I want to apply for services? It's more sort of like a where to start. And as Martin and I kind of discovered as we looked through a lot of these questions, the first thing to do is to go to the DARS website, and you can click on the how to apply, and under the header, what is VR, you will be able to get the contact for your local DARS office. Your local DARS office is the place to start for any of these things. You can work with your school, and we do have a question a little bit later for folks that are interested in working with their schools or wanting to know more about their school. The question here, the answer to this is that if you are interested in working with your school, you can speak with your school transition coordinator. They should be able to assist you. And if that does not work, feel free to reach out again to your local DARS office. That's going to be the answer for most of the things that people did ask in the chat, but I just want to say it one more time just so people hear it. There was a comment a little bit earlier about supported employment. And if anybody is wondering what supported employment means, it's basically when you have access to a job coach. That might be a person who helps you learn about the job or actually keep the job, or may need to check in with you as you have the job. And all of that information can be found on the DARS website if you need specific details, or contacting your local DARS office would be the place to go if you want to discuss that a little bit more extensively. But we wanted to make sure people understood what that term meant. What that term meant. And I am seeing a question in the chat. What do I do if I don't know what my local DARS office is? That link was in the beginning of the presentation. We can definitely make sure we drop that in one more time, but we did have the link in the beginning of the presentation. So if you want to know where your local DARS office is, go to the link that was in the beginning of the presentation when we send it out, and you'll be able to click on there to see where that local office is. Can I get the next slide? All right, the question is about students who are homeschooled and getting pre-ed services. You can reach out again to your local DARS offices, and they will be able to assist people who are homeschooled and they want to get connected that way. And there's a question about adult children who may be out of school. And just as a reminder, pre-ed services are available to students who are 14 to 22 years old. But if you are interested in getting information about employment for an adult, you can contact your local DARS office again. That is the answer to most things, and they will be able to point you in the right direction. So you can get support, or you can get information for an adult, but pre-ed services are specifically available to people who are 14 to 22 years old. Okay? All righty. So the next question, does DARS provide services for 28-year-olds that move to Virginia? And the answer is you have to have a presence in Virginia in order to be served. So if you just got here and you are physically located in Virginia, the answer would be yes. And everyone could probably guess the rest of the answer. Contact your local DARS office to take the steps for getting that additional information. And I see that people are posting in a chat. You can Google DARS offices near me and find some of that information. And you can also go to the website to see where that is. All right. And that's the DARS website. How does one learn more about paid and unpaid internships? Internships is something that you will find out more when you get connected to an employment counselor. But again, you have to reach out to your DARS office to find out more about that. And then Martin did note that on the DARS website, there is the manual for the services that are provided. That is something you might want to take a look at if you want to know in depth. Some people really like to know that stuff before they call. So you can go to the DARS website to see the manual to learn more specifics about what is available. But again, the first step about internships would be to contact your local DARS office. And once you get a counselor, you'll be able to get more information that way. Next slide, please. Are there any autism-specific services? So yes, there are autism-specific services. On the DARS website, if you go to the DARS website and look for the /autism that is located on the DARS site, and I think we'll drop it in the chat just so everyone can see it. And again, we'll have it in the follow-up material. But there are some autism-specific services that are listed on the DARS site that you can find out specifics for. And again, you can contact your local field office. Great. And I see, let's see, I see that is being listed here as well. Are there any costs for pre-eds? And are DARS services free? Talk about eligibility. So there are no costs for pre-eds, but you may be, VR services may have some costs associated with them. But as Martin told me, if you are receiving SSI, those fees are generally waived. When you contact your local DARS office and get that information with speaking with someone who does that screening and assessment, they'll be able to give you more information as you move along in that process. And are there any other questions on the slide? Okay, I see they're not. I'm going to take a second here and talk a little bit about the council business. I know we usually keep a couple minutes in here. We had a ton of things to cover tonight, so I'm glad folks were able to participate, and I hope you got a lot of great information out of it. The next coordinated council meeting will take place on September 16th. We will do the same time from 6:30 to 8. If you are interested in receiving emails about the IFSP council meetings and events, please make sure you fill out the satisfaction survey to give us your email. And I think that's been popped in a couple times on the satisfaction survey. The link has been added in there a couple times. I see that there was a question about getting information about the funding updates. We send out the funding update information via our listserv. So if you get emails from us, you will get those updates as they're sent out on the listserv. All of that information is sent out through the listserv or posted to the My Life, My Community site. And we didn't have an additional update to provide here tonight, but that is the way to get the most recent update. Again, as a reminder, the recording of the PowerPoint slides, the notes, and the additional information will be shared on the My Life, My Community site. We will also post this information to the IFSP Facebook page. And if you are interested in finding out more about the IFSP Facebook groups, please check out those links, follow a group in your community, and follow our state IFSP site to get more information there. We do post quite a few things there as we see items that are of interest to families across the state. Just as a reminder, the annual waiver waitlist notification will be coming out sometime in the summer. And for people that we have your email address, we will be sending that notice out to you. What we usually include in that is information about things that are available to people who are on the waiver waitlist. And we encourage people to make sure you give us your email address. If you don't remember anything tonight, it's always go to the DARS site and give us your email address if you want to stay connected. But if you give us your email address, you will receive an email later in the summer. Otherwise, you will receive a hard copy letter. But as you all have seen lately, the Postal Service has been a little bit slow, so give us an email address so that we're able to get you information that way. And I believe that is it. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Special thanks to Maddie and Seb. Seb had to hop off, but he sends his regards. Martin, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think the key piece of everything is go to the DARS site if you have any questions, but also people can reach out to you, I'm sure, if they have things that they wanted additional information on. We have the contact information on our regional experts here, so we will have that in the final slide deck. And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn for the night. Thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to take the survey. We definitely want to know if this is useful for you, and we appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.